Today's walk is in Nikiszowiec, a neighborhood in my hometown, Katowice, Poland. These old pavements will definitely challenge your stability. So here's what supports your knee more than people realize. Many people, when addressing knee pain, they try to stretch the knee, they try to strengthen the knee, they put ice on the knee or do injections to the knee. But the knee is not designed to work alone. Your foot and ankle dictate the forces that will be applied to your knee. Working on improving the intelligence, movement intelligence of the foot and ankle will help the knee restore its health. Here are 3 simple exercises that will help your foot and ankle handle any terrain. We'll make them in 3 different levels of complexity. The easiest one, sitting on the chair. And let's begin with the first cardinal movement of the foot. Dorsiflexion and plantarflexion. Dorsiflexion, lifting the ball of the foot and toes. Plantarflexion, lifting your heel. And alternate between pointing the foot and flexing the foot. Feel what's the range of movement, how high the ball of the foot and toes lift, how high your heel lifts. Perhaps you will notice a tendency for the foot to roll a little bit outward as you plantar flex. This is the first movement responsible for walking, running, flexing and pointing your foot. The second movement will be going on edges, lifting inside border of the foot, outside border of the foot. Move between inverting and everting. This is a combination of inverting and everting, or supinating and pronating your foot. Basically, you move weight onto the inside of the foot as the outside border lifts, and move into outside border when the inside border lifts. Make sure that your knee remains pretty much level in the original position. In other words, you don't move the knee in and out. The knee remains upright while the foot underneath it accommodates to side movements. You might find that the movement of supinating the foot is a little bit larger than pronation. In other words, lifting the outside border is much smaller movement than lifting of the inside border and the arch of the foot. Work on making it smooth, work on control. The third cardinal movement of foot and ankle is abduction and adduction, turning the front of the foot outward and inward. Avoid making large movements to prevent excessive twisting in the knee. Heel is your axis, and the front of the foot slides inward and outward. Excellent. Perform about 10 movements in each of the cardinal directions. However, don't focus on numbers. It really is not important if you do 15, 7, or 12. It's much more important the quality. Your attention should be on the quality of movement, smoothness, ease of movement. Next, we'll perform the same movements in an unfamiliar position, lying on the stomach with the knee bent at 90 degrees and foot, the sole of the foot, facing toward the ceiling. Bending your knee to about 90 degrees so the leg is more or less like a column, and begin to flex and point your foot. The same movement that we did in sitting. But this now is much more complex. We're not used to having the sole of the foot pointing, facing the sky. Our foot is usually down to the ground. So it seems like the same movement. However, because it's done in unfamiliar situation, it's a wonderful training for your nervous system. Most of us can sense toes and ball of the foot pretty well. Can you do the same movement thinking of your heel? Heel pushing to the ceiling, the heel getting shorter toward your calf, elongating toward the ceiling, and moving toward the ground, toward the calf. Continue and shift your attention to the front of the foot. And make a few more switches between the heel and the front of your foot. Next, arrive at more or less 90 degrees and begin to supinate and pronate your foot. The second movement. Edges of your foot. Outside edge coming toward the floor. Inside edge pushing to the ceiling and reversing it. Inside border moving toward the floor and outside toward the ceiling. Can you feel how challenging that is to perform this movement clearly in this unusual situation? It's the same movement that you experience with the foot on the ground. While the foot was on the ground, it wasn't too challenging. But here, our awareness gets a bit fuzzy. And that's okay. That's okay to feel a little bit uncertain if you're doing it correctly or not. Keep practicing the movement according to what you sense at this moment. I promise you, with training, it will get better and better. The third cardinal movement is turning the toes outward and inward while the foot remains more or less level. Imagine the ceiling lowering down to meet the surface of the foot, and you sweeping the ceiling with the ball of the foot outward and inward. Don't move large movement as they do twist your knee. Excessive movement, especially when weight bearing, of twisting, is dangerous for the knee and a source of many injuries. What we want is to have this physiological movement, but to control it. A few more repetitions. And that was our second level of complexity. The third level of complexity will require a book, hardcover book, a large one, children's book will do, or an art book. And who knows, you may actually end up with these exercises bouncing like Tigger. Why not? Lie on your stomach and place the book on the foot that you were exercising. Find a balancing point for the book so it doesn't fall, and start to make small movement of pointing and flexing your foot. It's okay to make movements much smaller. Notice the level of awareness that's required to perform these movements smoothly without dropping the book. This is much more challenging. Start small. Eventually, you can make the movements a little bit bigger, and you eventually could even make changes in the position of the knee, so the book will remain on the foot while the foot is traveling toward the buttock, which requires flexing the foot, and away from the buttock toward the floor, almost to fully straightening the knee, which requires pointing of the foot. So the book can stay on your foot. Can you sense how this challenges your brain, your skeleton, and your muscles to perform almost perfectly? Second movement, in and out, side to side movements. Again, start very small. Imagine if you're skiing, you're putting outside edge and inside edge of the ski toward the snow. Start small. Feel the range that's possible without dropping the book. It's okay, at the beginning the movements will feel jumpy. Eventually, smooth them out. These movements offer our foot and the whole skeletal structure stability while standing on uneven grounds from side to side, like standing sideways on incline, or your foot adapting to unevenness of the cobblestones. And the third movement of turning the front of the foot right and left, again making it very small. Can you differentiate between the three different movements, dorsiflexion and plantarflexion, supination and pronation, and abduction, adduction of the foot? Dorsiflexion, plantarflexion, the first movement we explored today. Supination and pronation, the second cardinal movement. And rotations, or abduction and adduction. And there you have it. 3 cardinal movements done in 3 different ways to master control of your foot and ankle for uneven terrains. So such uneven terrain could be a challenge and actually a cause of irritation, or it could be a wonderful training. Please focus not just on your knee, but on suppleness of your foot and ankle. Walk mindfully, adapting to changing surface on which you're stepping. Don't power through, don't brace, don't push, don't effort. When the foot and ankle do their jobs, the knee does not absorb unnecessary efforts. It's not exposed to twisting, it's not exposed to undue strain. This is the simplest way of moving from an angry knee to a healthy knee. And now back to the old charming part of the city of Katowice. Here we see the original workers' housing built in the early 1900s. These buildings are called familoki, multi-family houses built for the coal miners of Gisze coal mine, later named Wieczorek. And this neighborhood's name, Nikiszowiec, comes from Nikiszowiec, the name of the coal mine shaft. Workers' housing was 2 to 3 story high. In a typical apartment where 6 to 8 people lived, there was only one room, bedroom, and a kitchen. There was a bathroom on the staircase between floors shared by a few families. A bit Spartan conditions, but the door to the kitchen was open and welcoming. Perhaps that's why, for the people of this region, for Silesians, family and true friendships are so important.